right, so thank you, ladies, for joining us. As you know, we like to keep our schedule because everybody's got busy lives. And so this will be our last WIA AIA Florida group meeting for the year, because of course, December gets complicated. January, we have legislative day, and we will pick up our schedule back in February, which I believe Becky has already invited some of you who are in the base camp. And if you're new to visiting us, make sure you let Becky know you want to be in the base camp, which is a sort of I don't know, Becky can probably describe it better than I can. A platform that we can share and collect and all those kind of things. As our speaker today is somebody who I have had the pleasure of knowing for several years, and is always a joy to listen to and have fun listening to her successes. She is a woman of many titles and many names, but ultimately she was our first AIA Florida Gold Medal winner. It took us 100+ years to get one. A little disappointing it took so long, but very exciting that Joyce was it. So Joyce left her London-based practice after 15 years. She relocated to Florida where her family lived, and in UK and Florida. Her practices and her designs have garnered a lot of attention and earned many award-winning designs and environmentally. And she really does think about what that project needs to be like in wherever it is. She, as I said, received our 2022 AIA Gold Florida Medal. So it was my pleasure to announce her name. I didn't give her the medal because that's usually the predecessor's name, but I announced her name, the highest award that AIA Florida can give a member. And she is also got the AIA Florida Medal of Design, honor for design in 2020. And she was elected to the College of Fellows for AIA National in 2018, where I had the honor of being her sponsor. So as I said, I've known and loved Joyce's work. And I looked at the screen, I was like, oh. So with that, Joyce, the floor is yours. And in this case, the screen is yours, not the floor.
Okay. So am I host, Becky?
You should be able to hit share screen at the bottom of your screen and do that. There you go.
Are we there?
Yep.
Great. Okay. I'll just give you a moment to read the lowercase t. Okay. So I guess the first question is, why am I here today? Why have I been asked to be the one that is your speaker for the Women in Architecture? And I'm very honored that I'm here. But it's kind of a crazy time for me to be here, being your speaker. But Lourdes invited me, and if you know Lourdes, you do as Lourdes says. So here I am, despite the fact that I'm living in the aftermath of a natural disaster. And I can tell you it affects us at every level, in our homes, in our health, in our business. Every client has been affected. Everything here has been disrupted. And we've all been in hurricanes, in the aftermath of a hurricane before, living in Florida in one way or another. But this is beyond anything that I could have ever imagined in my lifetime. And so it has personally put us, my office, in a new building because our other office got damaged in the hurricane. So we had to move. So that's been part of our disruption. It's been a very happy disruption, okay, that we're now in another building and happily relocated, I suppose. And so when Lourdes asked me to do this, I was kind of like, Lourdes, like, why am I doing this? Why are you asking me? And she was very insistent, because she said to me, Joyce, you're the gold medal winner this year. And because of that, there's a responsibility that comes with that. And she's right. I didn't understand that when I was going to receive the gold medal. I thought, wow, I'm going to get the gold medal. But what I didn't understand was how important it was that I was the first woman. Because to me, I've always just been an architect. Whether I was male or female was sort of not like part of the story, really. I guess it always has been sort of woven into my life in the way I do things differently and so on. But I can tell you that moment when Lourdes, did announce that I was the one that was getting the gold medal was, I realized how important it was to me and to a number of people in the room, a lot of women. So here I am to share just some things about how I got there, like why did I receive this gold medal, and sort of what I'm going to be doing next as well. And Lourdes did give me a bit of a free pass. She said I could do a short discussion and then we could, presentation, and then we could open it up to a discussion. And that discussion might be Q&A, or it might be about where you're headed and how you're getting there, and if you need any help along the way. So I'm going to try to do this reasonably quickly, okay, and go through, and we'll just go from there. Okay. So if I was ever asked if there could be a book title to sum up my life, I would call it The Little Architect That Could, Choo Choo.
Mm.
And the reason I say that is because I'm very tenacious, and that might have come from the past. I had 4 brothers, and if I wanted to be included in anything, I had to try, and I had to try harder, because I wasn't a boy. I didn't think like them, and I certainly wasn't as big as them. My brothers are all about 6 foot, and I barely make 5 foot. So I had to try really hard to hit the basketball hoop and hit that ball, across the baseball field to make a home run. So it was always about trying harder than everybody else around me. I thought I'd share with you, when I was young, I didn't start my education in architecture. All my life, I thought I wanted to be a veterinarian. So I went to pre-vet school. And then when I got there, I knew something wasn't right, and it didn't feel, I didn't feel like I was in the right place, and I couldn't understand why, but it wasn't the right thing for me. So I decided I needed to do something a little more challenging than being a veterinarian. So I chose architecture instead, which I'm sure all of you can appreciate how difficult it is. And I didn't have a whole lot of female role models when I was going into architecture school. I was very lucky that 25% of my class, which was pretty high back in those days, were women. So we had each other, but I didn't really know any older, I didn't know any architects that were women as I started with my career. So as Lourdes kind of alluded to, I came to Florida after college so that I could get my license. And I came here because I had a family history here. My parents actually moved here in '86, but we'd actually been coming to Sanibel since 1972 because we had a condo here. And so those 4 brothers, interestingly enough, came to Florida immediately, as my parents had when my parents, sorry, my phone's going off. Okay, it's like blowing up over here. It's really annoying. So my parents came to Florida, and then my brothers moved to Florida. And so I decided I needed to come here for a while as well to get my license and sort of learn my trade. So while I was here, I learned the sort of fundamental principles of design and basic building techniques, and importantly, how to take advantage of this idea of indoor-outdoor living, which I loved. And during that time, I immediately got my license. However, as soon as I got my license, I did decide I was going to move to England. So I had this dual life. I lived between 2 countries. I mean, I was permanently settled in London for 15 years. I did think I was going to stay there permanently, but I decided to come back. So I immediately had to get my license when I was in London, which was only possible because I had gotten my license young in Florida. And so I was able to go there and get my license. And by getting my license in England, I was actually able to start my own practice when I was in London. So it was fun being in Britain and having my own practice. And what I was able to do during that time was sort of share like the experiences that I'd had in Florida about indoor outdoor living and how do we address, this idea of land and landscape together. And at the same time, I was in a very different climate though. So, I had these grand ideas about building indoor, outdoor like I did in Florida, but yet I had to minimize the British weather, which is typically very overcast and gray. So my partnership in London was with another woman. She was from Turkey, so we were both foreigners, and it was a very interesting practice and opportunity because we learned as two foreigners in a very kind of rich culture like Britain, we didn't have to play by the rules in the same way because we could sort of transcend a very strict class system. As foreigners and as professionals, we didn't have to play by those rules, and it gave us a bit of freedom. So we started our practice, which became successful very quickly, doing historic renovations on buildings that were sometimes more than 300 years old. So I got to learn a lot about old buildings and the opportunities of working with older buildings and how you could breathe new life into them. And that really, I think because of the freedom that we had as foreigners, I don't want to say respect isn't the right word, but it wasn't about respecting the buildings. It's not that we didn't respect them. It's just that we took opportunities that other British people might not have taken. So it was nice. We were sort of on the edge of a trend that was happening there. And we garnered a lot of attention back then for what we were doing. And so we weren't just doing homes, we were also doing a lot of retail stuff. And in all of these projects, I was always thinking about those design principles that I had learned about when I had been in Florida for those few years. It was a great run. We had great opportunities. This is the images you're seeing here are for the Alexander McQueen flagship store in London. And we got to work directly with him, which was quite an honor for us. It also led us to work with a lot of other fashion people like Philip Tracy, he's the hat designer, Vivienne Westwood, you know, come one generation older than Alexander McQueen. We did a lot of museums. We got to work with Boris Johnson, who became the prime minister, and just a host of other various kind of, you know, semi-famous people that really were interested in good design. And so it was such an honor and a privilege to be working in Britain. And who knows how these two foreign women were able to like break into that world and have all these amazing clients. But we were very lucky. So we also had some experiments in modern residential while I was there. And so really all I could ever think, I designed my own house too, which I'm not showing you here. I sort of forgot to put that one in, but it was really all about how do we bring in the light and how do we expand the inside out, because they don't, you know, spaces are a lot smaller in Britain than they are here. So we expanded our inside out and really thought about how you can see here from these images here, we did this as a courtyard house, it's the same house. And so by putting in these big glass walls, we could sort of live inside outside. And this was a bit unheard of in Britain because they were really used to and loved living in their Victorian houses with their little rooms and fireplaces, because that's what they had and that's what they were used to living in. But now with, you know, central heating systems and modern mechanical systems, we can actually, you know, also live like in central London like you do in Florida. So it was quite fun to be able to do things like this. And then I decided to move back to Florida. Hang on here. But unfortunately for me, I thought when I moved back from Florida, I thought I was going to fall right back into this successful career that I had in London. I had my practice there for 10 years and it was amazing. It was an amazing opportunity. And I thought it was going to be really nice to come back and do the same thing in Florida. But what instead happened was I became very frustrated that no one really cared that I had a successful business in the UK. And let's face it, I didn't move to London. I didn't move to somewhere like New York City. I chose a small town in Southwest Florida. And so it was more like the Wild West than coming back to, you know, a city where people were interested in design and so on. But even worse than all that, I sort of found that in my corner of the universe down here in Southwest Florida, that no one really even cared about what architects did. But being the little architect that thought she could do anything, I thought I could single-handedly as well change the world, or at least change, a few people's thoughts on design by education. So I decided I needed very, very early on after coming back that I really wanted to have a mission about advocating for the profession of architects. I had learned what it was like to be a real architect in England, and I wanted the same thing here. So how did I do that? I decided that I needed to talk to people about it, like journalists about it. And I realized they didn't understand. So I started writing my own column. So for nearly 5 years, I wrote a column in our paper, our local paper, which was often syndicated around the country if it was appropriate. I did some exhibitions on architecture, local ideas. And interestingly enough, I started getting involved with the AIA. First at the local level and then at the state level. And then I went on to doing the national, getting involved at national level. And so it seemed to me that the more I volunteered with the AIA, the more opportunity I had to voice my passion about the value of architecture. It seemed, as always, the more you give, the more you get. However, in parallel with all my volunteer work with the AIA, I was actually setting up my practice again in this country. So after the success of my London firm, I thought when I returned, I'd be doing things like museums and churches and retail and resorts. But that isn't what happened at all. It seemed that I've come to learn recently that I'm not really going to get that kind of work here. This is going to, that work is going to be more for established practices that in a small town are run by good old boys. So even though I returned to Paradise, and I wasn't coming back to a community that was big ideas. It might be maybe a little small-minded, but as always, I wanted to do something about that. As tenacious as I am, I carried on doing what I've always been passionate about, and I just kept pushing forward. And I carved out a niche for myself. I was aware of the magic of Southwest Florida. I'd already lived here. So I began to study the history of Florida buildings and try to learn and appreciate how our ancestors kept cool without relying on air conditioning. And I was inspired by all this research to try to create buildings that were able to reuse core principles of what our ancestors were doing in the past and incorporate modern technology and use sustainable materials that reduce energy and bring in daylight and make buildings that are more comfortable. So I wrote about it. I did exhibitions about it. I talked to the media about it. And eventually they took an interest in what I was doing. So here I am 20 years later, and I've returned 20 years since I've returned, and now my practice has been established. And we're basically doing appropriate designs that incorporate and focus on environmentally sensitive tropical trends. So no matter what the function or the style that our clients are asking us to do, our goal is to reflect the beauty of the nature in Southwest Florida, while offering maximum comfort and protection from the tropical heat. Inside and out, the architecture of my practice celebrates the Florida environment with its harsh climate, intense rains and winds, the sun, the searing sun, and our very, very high humidity that's here. So while we know how to keep the outdoors out now, we also invite nature in at every chance. So recognizably, it creates a look that is not a style, but it's certainly directly tropical in its design aesthetic. But I'm also very determined that our clients understand how we can create these designs and tailor them to both their needs and the client, and in which they've chosen to live. So I always try to distill the design process into a few simple principles, which I've labeled tropical modern. So kind of the reason I want to talk about this in very simple terms is that I'm a firm believer in not talking architectural jargon to clients or the press or anyone. So I try to distill it down into very simple ideas. So I'm just going to talk you through some things, and I know you're architects and you're probably going to, you know, you're probably going to say, oh, this is how I might explain this to my grandmother. But that's kind of my goal, is I want to use words that your grandmother would understand so that she will understand what you're doing. So I use this term, tropical modern, because it sounds quite exotic. And also for my purposes, it can be quite vague. So I talk a lot about light and huge glass windows and doors that open onto the landscape. And then how we bring in skylights or top lights, exterior courtyards and open floor plans to bring in light from the middle. And so those are easy terms to understand for anyone. They're not, you know, architecturally, this project has a lot of, you know, kind of highbrow architecture to it, but nobody needs to know that. That's not really what we're here for. I want our clients to be very comfortable in these spaces. So you can see here, we use a lot of white on these surfaces as well, which also reflect the sun and the shade. So it kind of, you know, daylight is always changing in these spaces. Outdoor light is also very important, and we like to take advantage of it. The colorful skies on the coastal waters of Southwest Florida, they reflect in onto the windows on the outside and off the white exterior of this building. And you can see how we're using this pool for all those reflections. And it's nice because down, you know, anywhere in Florida, that ever kind of changing quality of light, it provides an essential element of our designs that transform, you know, from the sunny reflections of the day into the colorful glows of the evening. But with all that light, we have to have shade, and that protective shade is so important. So, you know, simple terms like deep porches, extra wide eaves, verandas, you know, covered walkways, lanais, canopies are all incorporated into our designs and incorporated to offset the heat that's created by these big openings. And when we shelter ourselves from the sun, it also means we shelter from the summer rains. So here, this is an ecclesiastical building. It's a parish hall. And so you can see how we're using these big overhangs everywhere. You can't quite see in this image, but there's a big clear story window at the high level that brings in loads of daylight, but it's all protected from the sun. So we carefully locate all these windows and doors and invite in lots of natural light, but make sure they're always shaded. And when you explain these things, you know, to your clients, why you're doing it and how, you know, oh, sure, we want the daylight, but we want to protect it from the sun, and it reduces your energy bill. They listen, they want to hear what you have to say. So ventilation and views are very important, and encouraging cross breezes are a critical component of our designs. So here again, you can see we're using those clear stories, you know, that are protected by shade. But in this house, all of these openings are very strategically located in the house. I can't show you everything, but I can promise you the cross ventilation in this house is, it's pretty wonderful to be here in a setting. This is not one of our coastal projects. It's actually set in a pine forest. But you get amazing breezes here. And this one, I love these two photos here because you can see how we've strategically located all the windows and doors. So this is like a back to front. So it's looking one way into the kitchen and then the other way out into the Gulf of Mexico. And by comparing and contrasting these two images, you can see how easily the breeze comes through. We never design houses that are so big that you have dark spaces in the middle. You know, we're always allowing that light to come in from every direction, and then allowing that cross breeze to come through. So this one is about seamless space, which is, you know, kind of terminology that we're always trying to explain to our clients how when we use seamless transition between the indoor and outdoor space, they can have so much extra real estate in their homes. So this is a house designed for hurricanes. It's off the ground. Fortunately, this client doesn't want to have storage on their ground floor, which is super great for us because then it allows us to have a very open space below. And so it really allows all those living spaces to just extend outside, you know, out on the roof terrace, out on the first floor living space, and below the house as well. This is a renovation of a project. And this used to be the space that you're looking at, used to be the screen porch. So we actually put the fireplace in here to create a very traditional sort of space with these gridded windows. But what I love about this project is how we made it into a sort of pavilion, and how by using all this glass either side of the fireplace, it embraces you know, the outdoors, the lush environment of what's out there. I have to tell you, we took these like a week before the hurricane. So there is absolutely not one green thing out those windows right now. So we were very fortunate. We went out and took some photos. This is a historic renovation. And I bring this one in because it's not really, this cottage is from 1912 and it was brought to Captiva and set on the dune probably 50, 60 years ago. And so we renovated this cottage. And what I love about this is, even though it's a traditional space, we really put kind of a modern hand on these interiors and didn't do a traditional response, but really thought about where are the views and how should they use these spaces. And so we completely reconfigured the inside and put all these sort of modern insertions in while getting the scale right on the inside, and trying to make this space feel very much part of 2022 instead of, 1912, but yet it still keeps its charm of a historic building. So we very much focus on the materials that we're using down in our Florida buildings. And we work with metal and white stone, wood, glass, and rich materials. And we hope that it sort of reinforces that idea of inside and outside by the material choices that we're doing. We're always trying to embrace the natural environment, as I've said, and we love using these kind of clean, modern lines and contrasting light and dark to create this rich combination of materials and textures. So when I talk about tropical modern, which is a term I use for every project we do practically, it's a design style we've embraced, but you see it can mean so many different things. And it's also great to use things like this when you're talking to the press, because they love terms like this about, what do you do? What does that mean, tropical modern? And so it's great to be able to talk about it. So that's the design side of, when we talk to our clients, but really underlying all of the design stuff that we do, and so importantly today, is, we have a design vocabulary that we're using, but in Florida, each one of us has to really build for these harsh surroundings that we live in. And so we insist that our clients listen to us about heat and sun and humidity, and so importantly now, resiliency, about hurricanes and flooding and sustainability. And we do that by, we won't build in wood anymore on the beach. No more wood piling houses for us. We absolutely refuse to allow people to do that, because they won't last as long and they won't be as strong or as resilient as using concrete on the beach. So we're very lucky. Our clients have seen and have believed us over the years that building this way does make for a smarter building on the beach or on the islands or anywhere that we're designing buildings on the coast. So fortunately for us, all that energy and effort has now paid off, because this is an example of a house that we designed on the coast And then the image below is after the hurricane. So this house wasn't finished yet. And it was still under construction, but you can see it's like that house I think of up in the Panhandle when the hurricane hit there, and there was the one house standing in Mexico Beach. And this house, I feel like that's our house now. It's the one left standing on the beach. And loads of people have told us as they, are boating out to their properties, they're telling me now that this has become a landmark on the beach. Sanibel and Captiva are quite long beaches. And so this home has sort of become a landmark for them. Oh yeah, that big white house on the beach that's still standing. So I'm very happy that our clients have been listening to us for the last 15 years or so since I started my business. And all of our houses survived. We're so lucky on so many levels that, the damage was minimal compared to everybody else. I mean, our houses are built to are designed so that the water will flow underneath, and the water did flow underneath, and it did do damage on the ground floor, but that's how they're supposed to do it. The blowout construction walls are supposed to blow out, and the frangible slabs are supposed to break up, and they did. So they did what they were supposed to do, but structurally, we got an A+ on all of our structures, and I'm very happy about that. Even the renovations that we did on Captiva, which are really out of our control because they're older buildings and we can't build them as strong, fared very well. So we were very lucky. So I'm happy that this has all happened. And so at this point in our career, my career, I'm really talking to anybody that will listen to me about resiliency. And so I'm just going to do a little segue here and kind of talk about the last few years for me, which was Lourdes touched on briefly, which was in 2018. I did have the honor of receiving fellowship with Lourdes as my sponsor, and also with Jackie Hale as my partner. She also received her fellowship during that year. And that was a great honor for me. But in 2020, I received the Medal of Honor for Design, which I can tell you was a huge highlight in my life, that I, was able in Southwest Florida to receive this design award because, mostly it's, firms that have been around for a long time, and they've been doing, design that most of us don't even have the opportunity to do. So for me to be recognized for the fact that, we're doing good design work, but we're also doing designs that are environmentally sensitive and resilient. And also, we do a lot of those interiors are all custom that we do. And so that was recognized. So we're a much smaller practice, although we're not that small now. We're sort of 7 or 8 off and on now. And, that's kind of a medium-sized firm for me. And so I'm very honored that we were able to, achieve that design award. And then, of all things, 2 years later, it was so interesting that I got the gold medal, because who would have thought 2 years after getting the design award, I would be getting the gold medal. So I feel that we practice differently than most firms, most traditional firms. And I feel, as always, a little bit like I am that engine that could, I just kept trying and I got there. So I feel like, that little engine who was trying to get up the mountain, and this year I feel I made it to the highest mountain. So when I was receiving my gold medal, I was allowed to give a brief speech about whatever I wanted to talk about. And I decided in that speech, I made a vow that I wanted to work even harder to spread the word about the value of the architect. So in simple, plain English, so that the public could be educated about what we do as architects. So here I am. This is another chance for me to have a bigger platform, because I don't think all of you were there when I received my award. And I want to encourage you to do the same. Drop the architectural jargon when you talk to your clients or your family, and I just simply tell them what we do. and tell anyone that will listen. And don't be afraid to tell them what we do, because no one else can tell you that story the way you can. And it's our story to tell. And if we don't tell that story, it'll be lost. So I really want to encourage you to find a way to tell your story to someone else. So what have I been doing since the hurricane to spread that word? After Ian, and together with the help of a very valuable and determined young architect in my office, we decided we were going to do a blog about building stronger and smarter in Florida. So this is from our new Instagram account, where we're going through the process as we go through the process with our clients, interestingly enough, and see like, what is it that they need to know? So after we do our Instagram blogs, which you can find there, it's called AJO_FLSSO_RSS, I think is our handle. And so this has been great. And loads of people have already told us that they're really appreciating the information we're putting out there for them. So this has nothing to do with our business. We're just putting it out there for the public. It's written in plain, simple English so that other people can take advantage of it. As well as that, unbelievable, I do have a lot of people interested now after the hurricane in what we have to say about resiliency. And I had the opportunity to go on national, go online, I should say, with AccuWeather. They took the time to come with me to go inspect some of my projects out there. And then they put this online, and then it was picked up by Yahoo. I've had some local news coverage today. I'm apparently on Wink News, our local news station. And so it's been amazing how the audience has so quickly expanded. And it's because I feel that we have something that, you know, our immediate environment here, it's an important thing that needs to be said about building stronger and smarter. So with that, I finally got to be recognized locally as well. And this year, last month, I was actually named one of the Men and Women of the Year in my community. And that was a huge honor for me that I got this opportunity. So with that, I want to stop talking. Okay. I talked more than I thought I could, Lourdes. Okay. And I just want to open up a discussion about what you guys are doing and so on. So does anybody
Joyce.
want to talk?
Joyce, this is amazing. I know you have not had, and I know at least half of your story simply because I helped you in your fellowship package, but there's so much more that I didn't know. And of course, so much you have done since 2018. And of course, you were chatting with us and not looking at the chat, like the right way to do it, right? So you don't get distracted like the rest of us, you know, we all have ADD. And everybody, I mean, I just want to take the time to tell you what, you know, people are saying. Beautiful work, inspired by your sensitivity to building back better, respecting the environmental impact of Florida. Landscape architect, welcome, Hang. I appreciate you outdoor and indoor. Mary Lise, of course, a fellow, sends her congrats. Stephanie, of course, who you know well deserved. And Barbara got the right handle for your Instagram account.
Oh,
shared it with us. So thank you, Barbara.
Because I probably didn't say it very well, and I forgot to put it on the screen. Sorry.
And of course, and then Elena and Naomi from Miami, of course, your work is really, really inspiring. So I think, first of all, you probably could have talked for another hour and we would have not even noticed it. But you certainly have shared a lot of what you've done. And I'm so honored and thrilled that you A, said yes, and B, that if we had to wait 100+ years to get a woman to get the Joyce to get the medal, then at least it went to you, right? So if that, if people would like to have some questions, we still have, about 15 minutes to share. I know that my question to you, and you don't have to answer it now because I still am going to be busy next year, but what do you do after you no longer are immediate past president of AI Florida? What do we do? What do I do with my time? So I will be asking that in end of next year.
Oh,
What do I
you
do?
no, you don't have to worry for 1 minute because Becky will keep you very, very busy. Right, Becky?
Right, I
It's
haven't
fun
learned to say
though. The
no.
following year is so
Of
fun.
course.
Yeah, because you get to do the design awards and that is such a highlight. I mean, it's such an honor and a privilege to be able to chair the design awards. That is such a highlight for me. So, yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. So, anybody want to leave comments, questions? You can, if you want to end the slide,
Yeah.
stop
we can
sharing
stop
your screen.
sharing.
Yes, there you go.
Yep.
So that
Yeah.
if you want to, we don't need to be all in the witness protection program. That's what I tell my clients. We're in the witness protection program. You can turn your camera on. There's a couple of young associates at our event here tonight, and a couple of young architects as well. So not tonight, this is daytime. So I think Joyce is definitely an inspiration. So please, ladies, don't be shy.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to hear from you what you guys are doing and how, how can I make this better, right? And easier for you.
I don't have a question, but I want to thank you for this awesome presentation. It's very inspirational. And it reminds me when I went to architecture school, going there with that passion of design. Now that I work in the field, it kind of fades off. So listening to you and seeing your projects inspire me to dream again about
Oh,
architecture.
thank you. That's
So,
very
thank you.
important to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
thank you. Thank you.
People are following the instructions. I see Stephanie and Rhonda have their hands up. I don't know who went up first. So Stephanie's on the left of my screen. She'll go first.
I first waved, but that wasn't right. It went away. So I learned how to raise my hand. Joyce, I have a question regarding working with in a male-dominated field and with men. From college to Fort Myers, London, Fort Myers, where did you come across the most resistance?
Oh,
Or
definitely when Fort Myers, when I came back. Oh, it was like shocking because I had been so free in London. Like it was incredible to have so much opportunity. Just kind of, I know we worked hard, okay, but doors opened there. And then I came back here and I worked for a company and I just watched those doors close one by one, and it was like the more able I was, the more doors got shut because the men didn't like that. I hate to say, because
Yes.
I'm not all of them. Some of them were great. Okay. Gave me huge opportunities. And then others just, which eventually led me to, have my own practice. I'm not good at office politics. I'm very passionate about what I do, and I don't want to spend my energy worrying about what other people, how they feel about me. And so I had started my own practice before. I knew what that meant. And so it was just the best thing I could have done was to have my own practice again. And so I tell my team, too, like there's no office politics. And if you want to, like, as we're growing, we're a family in there and we're going to work together. And I love my team and they're so good and they're so talented. And I want us to work. I want us to, kind of come up together, and I want us all to look after each other. I don't want office politics. So
That's great.
Love it.
Rhonda and then Brooke and then Hang.
Hi, Joyce.
Hi, Rhonda.
Your story, because of course I only know the part through AIA and my time at the conventions and a little bit on the board, but it's so inspirational on so many levels. And like the young lady before, it's inspiring to see someone that still remains passionate. And so I have, being the list maker, have made things that I need to do just from listening to you. But my question is, what do you think the importance of having a mentor is, and who were the ones that had the largest impact on your career?
Yeah, I think it's hugely important to have a mentor. I didn't have a female mentor. I did know Andrea Clark Brown, who I'd met when I was young, but I didn't really know her. When I first worked in Florida, I'd met her before, but I didn't know her. I became friends with her sort of 20 years later when I came back to Florida. I became friends with her. But so my mentors were men, okay? And there were two men that were very important to me. One was a family friend. He was the only architect I ever knew. And he was, we knew him from Sanibel because he lived in Michigan and would come down to Sanibel the same time we would. And he was this tall, handsome, very charismatic, nice man who was always polite to everybody, very charming. And I was going to go to vet school. So like, I loved him as a person, but I didn't really think about, I just kind of admired him sitting at his drawing board, like Mike Brady all the time, and so I appreciated him. But the minute I decided to go to architecture school, he was so good to me. He would not, everything I did from then on was of great interest to him. I went to England. He wanted to know everything I did. He always made me come visit him when I was back and tell him what I was up to. And that was great. And then the other one was my boss when I was getting my license. And he was very, very appreciative of female architects. So we were probably, I'm thinking at the time, there were two of us in the office and another woman in the community. And he did everything he could to make sure we as women were given like better opportunities. Like he tried harder with us. And I got to be, I was just so lucky he took me under his wing and he gave me the opportunity for everything. And I have to tell you, sometimes I was told, don't do this in the office because other people won't be happy that you are designing this building. So if you don't mind, do that at home and then we'll bring it in. So, which is quite like, now I'm thinking about like, oh, well, that was a bit, manipulative of him to get me to work at home, right? Outside of hours, I should say, because I wanted to do it, right? Like any young architect, you want that opportunity.
Yeah.
And so I would do it. I would listen to him and I would do it at home. But he was very protective too, because he didn't want me. He wanted to keep giving me work, but he couldn't let those people know in the office. So I never told any of them that I designed the buildings. That was my secret, So it was quite interesting. So yeah, I was lucky. I had very important people.
Great,
Yeah.
thanks.
Thank
Brooke?
you.
Oh, we can't hear you, Brooke.
I can't hear you.
Uh-oh. While you sort your audio, I'll hang it to hang and then I'll send back to you, Brooke, okay?
Okay.
Oh, wait, you're back. Awesome.
Okay. And they gave me a new headset from IT and it's creating all sorts of chaos. I saw the articles that you had sent when it hit the mainstream, and I think the most important thing was, the comments, right? The masses make comments and it's like, these people in Florida should move away from the water. It's just going to happen again. And, people that live in a landlocked state that come to vacation in Florida on the beach for a week don't understand that living in a coastal environment is our identity. Like that's part of who we are and what we love. But I think it's important what you've done is to show that the answer with, being resilient is not to retreat from the water and give in to nature. Is to say, we're going to stay here because this is where we belong, but we're going to build better and smarter and not fight back to the masses, but say, no, it can be done. And we're going to enhance our design and do it better so that we can do what we want. So I think that was important for you to put this article out there and reach the masses and say, no, this isn't the answer. We're not all moving to Ohio. We're going to stay here, but we're going to make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, when we came up with that tagline for our, for our Instagram account, rebuilding stronger, smarter. I think what was in our mind is, we're all building to codes now, right? And so we have to, we don't have a choice. But what I try to do with our clients is that smarter part, right? So we want to push those codes, push them with our design sense, because we as architects have that ability to do better than the codes and to push it so that our buildings can be even better than what the codes are requiring. And so not just stronger, okay, not by putting more Simpson clips in to hold the roofs on, okay, not like that, but to design in a way that, like, we have to build for the water to come underneath our projects, right? So the water can come through. And so, well, how I'm trying to sell the clients on the design is that, yeah, let's not put storage down there either, but let's keep these houses open underneath. So when that big storm does come, you haven't lost all your family photos because you're using that as storage, right? That storage should be on an island no matter what. If you really have something precious like that, put it off the island and keep it somewhere else, and keep that space underneath the house so that, the water can do what it's supposed to do. And I have learned, I thought I knew a lot about coastal design until I firsthand witness what the power of water can do. And it is amazing the things that it does. And it's given us in our office the ability to understand even better what we're able to do and how we can design better for our clients. And it's been a great learning lesson. It's heartbreaking on every level, but it's also been a great lesson. So thank you.
Thank you. Hang, and then Nati.
Hi, Joyce and everybody. I just want to say thank you for giving us the great presentation. And this is my second year joining AIA. I'm not an architect. I'm actually a PLA, but I do hold a bachelor's degree in architecture back when I was in China. So I always felt the strong connection with architects, and especially women in architecture. I just want to, there's two things I echo so much with Joyce after hearing your journey as an architect and a woman in architecture. I went to school in China to get my architecture degree, and then went to Philadelphia at University of Pennsylvania for my master's in landscape. And I moved to Florida kind of because of the weather, because I didn't like the coldness in the Northeast. But I kind of did feel a strong sense of that like small town kind of atmosphere in my, past organizations, and felt kind of, I was overlooked, as a candidate because just because how I look, or being a foreigner and being a minority in this traditional profession. But I think, so that part I echoed a lot with you, Joyce. And fortunately now, after a couple of changes, I found an organization, which now I work for WGI. I actually just got promoted to be a studio manager. So I have a team of 5, mostly women, and kind of feel that I'm finally being appreciated as who I am, instead of like how I look or being a female.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So really appreciate that. And also the second, I wanted to say that I love your constantly writing about how you think your design philosophy is, because that's kind of what I'm doing as well. I'm like posting on LinkedIn like once every month about projects or design that we do, and kind of what my thoughts are, and kind of trying to get an audience, and also kind of looking for what I think my design philosophy is. So I just loved everything you shared.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of experimenting, right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't know at the time when I started writing that really I wanted, I really needed to be talking about resiliency the whole time. And that word wasn't really on my radar. I kept talking about the climate and how harsh it is and how we have to build our buildings strong. But it really is resiliency that is, the key word, I think, for where we need to talk about it. And it's a word that everybody is listening to now too. So
Right.
that's great. Yeah.
Love that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Matthew will be our last comment. So we don't want to take up everybody's lunch hour, which we did already.
Yeah, I'm going to be quick because Brooke basically pointed out exactly what I was going to say before I took my hand down. But I want to commend you, Joyce, because you really go all out to take the message out. I know that's always been your theme, and everyone on this call really needs to do the same. that we need to stop being in the corner, waiting for somebody to notice us and, you know, all be nice and play nice and safe. Go out there, be Joyce Owen. Yeah, that's all I
Thank
gotta
you,
say.
Melanie. Yeah.
Says
thank
the
you.
person that I want her to run for, to submit for her gold medal from AI Florida. And publicly I've announced it, so now you can't say.
Yeah,
no.
right, exactly,
Oh, Lord.
exactly. Yeah, it's time for the women to have their run, just like presidency at AI Florida is having a run of women. I think that, yeah, it's time we started taking over things, as well as that, you know, the Medal of Honor for Design. I was the second woman to win that one, and Andrea was the first person. So interestingly, 2 women from Southwest Florida, and both of us had very small design practices. You know, we didn't have the big design firms, and you know, there's a lot of parallels, you know, in the way, you know, Andrea and I practice. We didn't do big buildings, but we did buildings holistically, you know, everything. We did everything. So, yeah. I just want to tell you guys too, before we go, you know, because we've been doing the interiors for so long, I did actually open up an interior design department this past year. And it's the smartest thing I ever did. I will never look back for doing that, because it really allows us to make the decisions about how the projects get finished. And you know, as much as the interior designers that I have worked with in the area, you know, they're very talented in themselves, and I will never like take that away from them, but they don't always see things the way we see things. And so it's just been great. We have a great interior designer working with us now, who's really open to working with architects, and he's so willing to learn, like, because we're showing him something else and a different way of looking at things other than pretty fabrics and this, you know, I mean, we're really talking about space and light and all that. And he's just been great at joining us. So, yeah.
Well, thank you, Joyce. This was everything I was hoping and knew was going to be. So it is a great way to end our year. Our ad hoc group that I said, Becky, can we do this? And she's always a go for whatever many of us suggest, not just me. And we've had a wonderful run for 2022, and we're going to continue it in 2023. So it's not going away. I have ideas already, but I would certainly like assistance. This needs more than one champion, although I'm happy to champion for as long as is needed. So please let me or Becky know if you'd like to get involved, get a core group of people to, you know, not wait until 3 days before I need to figure out what the topic's going to be to come up with a topic, which is my standard way of approaching, because, you know, we're all busy. And if we could, you know, also start getting CEUs if we plan in advance. So now, you know, your hour of lunch not only is a valuable piece, but you're actually getting the lovely CEUs that we all need. But thank you, Joyce. This was very inspiring, and thank you for letting us record it, because I'm thinking I'm gonna go back to listen to some of this stuff, because you have, ever since I've known you, talked about advocating the value of architects and what we do, and that's been your mission, and you have not steered away from it. And we should all certainly continue to, we all need to be Joyce. We all need to think that we need to, as Natty says, get out of our little corner and be out there. So thank you very much for inspiring us. And I can't wait to see what else you're up to. I already am following your AJO_FLRSS.
Thank you. That would be
It
very
looks
nice.
fabulous. Now I got to spend some time. Not that I'm an Instagram guru, but I'll learn it. So
It's
Thank
fabulous. You will not regret following it, Lourdes.
So
It's
thank
been
you.
Yeah,
great.
we're
Thank
working
you
on
so
it.
much, Joyce. Thank you.
Oh, thank you guys for this opportunity. I have to say, it was, you know, Lourdes stressed me out completely when she asked me to do it. And I was like,
I seem to do that quite a bit, don't I? And then everybody goes, this was fun.
of course, it's always good on the day, right? It's always nice to do. And thank you for being such a great audience.
No,
Okay,
this
I
was
really,
fabulous. So-
I feel very fortunate to be, hopefully, you know, a mentor for some of you. So, thank you.
Great questions.
Thank
great
you.
comments, and
Yes.
Thank you, Joyce. Nice
Thank
to
you.
hear
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you all.
Right.
You all,
Bye-bye.
legislative day, January
Yes.
24th. And then in February for our last, for our first year, 2023 WEMA. So
Okay.
Thank you much. Have a
Bye,
great day.
everybody.
Bye.